And without further ado, I'd love to introduce us to today's panel. I'm going to start off with Jeff Silverstein. Jeff, I will pass it over to you for an introduction.
Great, thanks, Kyla. Jeff Silverstein. I'm the Deputy Administrator for Animal Production and Protection, and I've been involved with ARSX for 2 years, a couple of years now. One of the part of the team bringing you ARSX. So thanks.
Fantastic, thank you. Next, let's go to Pam Stark-Reed.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pam Stark-Reed, and I'm the Deputy Administrator at ARS in charge of nutrition, food safety, and product quality, and have been working with Jeff since the beginning of ARSX.
Fantastic, thank you, Pam. Robert Griesbach.
Yeah, I'm with the Tech Transfer Office, and I'm here to answer questions with Brian relating to IP, confidentiality, and things like that.
Fantastic, thank you. Brian Nakanashi, over to you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Brian Nakanishi. I'm the Acting Deputy Assistant Administrator for OTT, and I'm here with Rob Griesbach to answer your questions on IP, confidentiality, inventions, things like that. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And last, but oh no, not last, we've still got two more. Sujata Imani, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Sujata Imani. I am the Strategic Innovation Advisor at Office of National Programs. I'm happy to be on this team with so many people that are here on this panel to bring you ARSX, allowing your ideas to float to the top on interesting, radical, different, and ideas that haven't yet found a place in other funding sources at ARS. So welcome and happy to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sujata. And now the last but not least, Joe Capobianco. I'll pass it over to you for an intro.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joe. I'm a research materials engineer. I was a ARSX. I was on one of the winning teams from last year, and I'm here to just kind of answer any questions you guys have about the proposal, the pitching, and whatever it's like to be in the trenches. And I can help you with anything in regards to that process. Ask questions or find my email and contact me.
Thank you so much, Joe. We really appreciate you sharing your time with us today and excited to be able to share that perspective with the folks on today's call. So if you've just joined us, please do put any questions you have for the panel in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. We have a short presentation that we'll get into, and then we will move over to questions, but you can add your questions there at any time. All right, hopefully you're looking at my shared screen. Great, fantastic. So ARSX 2021. ARSX is your chance to be submitting your bold ideas that you care about, to work on problems that you select and you're really excited about, and to start to nurture some of those early stage ideas that you have. It is really looking for your bold, audacious ideas, and we're looking for things that are higher risk. So ARSX is all about failing fast, and we really do encourage you to look at your ideas and what are some of those that are a little bit earlier stage, they're not as mature, that you're excited to have an opportunity to take forward. The theme for ARSX 2021 is Harvest for a Healthier Future. And specifically, we're looking for transformative ideas that will help achieve a resilient and healthy food system. And the focus of those ideas is on reducing greenhouse gases arising from agricultural activities. And what does a resilient and healthy food system mean? Here's a few key themes that we think about when we're talking about a healthy and resilient food system. That's access to safe, affordable, desirable, and nutritious food, and equitable access to that food. It's being both economically and socially sustainable, as well as environmentally sustainable. And of course, reducing greenhouse gases arising from agricultural activities. And within these themes and this key problem statement, you're free to propose an idea that you think makes an impact in this space. It can be from any national program area. It can be a collaboration of national program areas or different research divisions. It can even be something that's outside of your typical workday that you're submitting to ARSX 2021. So how does it work? Right now, we are in the open submission period where you should be looking to start forming your team, considering what idea you'd like to submit and putting together your submission. The due date for those entries is coming up very quickly on June 29th. We'll go through a judging period, and on July 20th, we'll be announcing 10 finalist teams who will move on to the next phase of ARSX. In this phase, those 10 teams will receive innovation training and pitch coaching and work to finalize their submission to get ready for a phase 2 final pitch event that's happening in late August. At that phase 2 final pitch event, there will be up to 3 teams awarded $100,000 to move their idea forward. If you'd like to know more about ARSX, the place to look is HeroX.com/ARSX2021. If you're not familiar with this page, I highly recommend you go and take a look. It's where all of the details are and much more information than we have time to share about today. A few key points that I'd like to highlight. The guidelines is really the rules of the competition and the scorecard. So everything in here should be really valuable, but I'd like to point you specifically to the judging criteria, which will help you understand what makes a really great ARSX idea. For example, we can see that impact and novelty together are worth 80% of your score, really highlighting the search for those new high impact, high risk ideas. There's also details on here like the submission form and some eligibility requirements. On this page, please do click either the Solve This Challenge button or the Follow button, and that will subscribe you to updates. If you don't do that, we have no way to stay in touch with you as HeroX to make sure you know about deadline reminders and all the key details. And we do encourage everyone on your team to sign up in this way. When you click the Solve This Challenge, you can select if you'd like to compete as a team or not. And if you select yes, you can actually list your team on the HeroX profile or on the HeroX challenge page as seeking team members. And I'll just show you, kind of what that looks like. If you click this Find a Team button, you can see, here's an AI crop improvement team who's looking for additional members. And we also have a few innovators from ARSX that are hoping to be able to join a team. So feel free to add yourself here to support that teaming and collaboration. If you have any questions, of course, this webinar is a great place to bring them, but I also encourage you to post your questions in the challenge forum and we'll be able to answer them there after this webinar. So without further ado, I would like to invite our ARS panelists back to the screen, and we will move into the Q&A portion of today's webinar. And again, please do put your questions if you've just joined us in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. The first question I have here, and Jeff, maybe I'll give this question to you for a first crack at an answer. How closely tied to the reduction of greenhouse gases do we need to be? Not all ideas that lead to a healthy and resilient food supply will directly reduce greenhouse gases, but anything that makes agriculture more sustainable will reduce greenhouse gases in the long run.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And tying the project to sustainability and making the argument for how this will have environmental impact, positive environmental impact, is going to be key. So I think it does not have to have a direct tie to greenhouse gas as long as it's you can show the contribution to sustainable agriculture. And just to ask if anybody else has something to add.
Great, thanks, Jeff. Okay, this next question, is this for a 1 or 3 proposal? Is that ARS terminology I'm not familiar with?
I'm not sure exactly what's the question. I interpret it to mean, will there be, how many winners? Is it one winner or three winners? But we do expect there to be, if that is the question, that we expect there to be three winners, but I'm not certain that I have the question right.
No, he has just clarified for us. Is this for a 1 or 3 year proposal?
So the funds are available for 1 year.
Great, thanks, Jeff. I think a good question to build off of that is, what do you expect teams to accomplish in that 1 year of funds? Like, you're looking for early stage ideas. Where do you see submissions going to or ideas going to in that 1 year? And Sujata, why don't you answer that one first for us?
Thanks, Kyla. Yeah, I think that this is an important element of thinking through the problem. And Jeff has had many conversations, Pam and I, talking about what do we really think can be accomplished in that 1 year. When I chat with folks who are thinking about this ARSX projects, I suggest to them to really break down their problem into steps and milestones. So think about what would it really take to get to that key, what we call the riskiest assumption, right? How would you overcome that riskiest assumption you're making when you're talking about this proposal? By overcoming that in that 1 year, that could be essential to, your next level of funding, which won't come from ARSX necessarily, but maybe a larger funder, or maybe it will eventually fit into one of our CRIS projects. So thinking through the problem so that you can break it down into steps that can be accomplished in 1 year, and especially focusing on that riskiest assumption, that if you don't overcome that, that would be a fail point, but it would be a critical learning that we can make to advance the whole field further. Jeff and Pam, please do add.
Sujata, that was a great points. The only thing I guess I would add is also think of this as if you can collect data to de-risk the idea, then one of the ideas is this would make you eligible for other more conventional awards. So that would be another element of what to cover with this first year. I think of, I don't know if any other people know the story about Monkey First. I think Sarush told me about Monkey First with the riskiest assumption test. If you want to prove that you can teach a monkey to recite Shakespeare from a podium, for the risky assumption test, you wouldn't start by building the podium. You'd start by showing that you could have the monkey speak. So don't spend a year building the podium. So I always think of that as, a monkey first.
That's a fantastic analogy. Thanks for sharing that, Jeff. Joe, was there anything you would add as a 2020 winner? Any additional context or color you could add?
So I think that they summed it up great. This is de-risking money, or money to de-risk an idea. You think about it as a pitch. I come from industry and I come from starting two businesses. So I look at it as just looking for my seed money. How crazy of an idea is this? Can I get any information to push it and push the next level so that on the next stage I can get a higher valuation? But in this stage, it'd be more like, can I get some bigger dollars for some longer time? And our project is kind of, it's in line with what the monkey analogy is. Our project was dealt with building a handheld field portable device for assessing a HLB in citrus leaves. And we didn't start out by moving towards handheld. We started building prototypes and assessing whether or not the fundamental sensing mechanism would work. So that's where we've been focused, and have some IP pending there. And then again, the next stage would be making it more field portable and dialing in the optimization.
Thanks, Joe. That was really great. Anyone else like to add to this question before we move on? Okay. The next question is, what is a good or ideal length for a proposal? And I'm going to actually start off on this question, and then ARS folks, if you'd like to chime in, please do so. So I've just shared my screen again on that challenge page that I was showing earlier. And right underneath the judging criteria is the submission form. So you're not actually submitting a typical PDF proposal. We've tried to make this as easy for you to complete as possible. So there's specific questions that we're asking you to fill in with character limits against them. So for example, an overview with the 2000 character maximum. And these character limits do include spaces. So in terms of length, this is the place where I would go and look. When you're completing your submission, after you've kind of signed up, like I just showed last time I was sharing my screen, you'll see this new begin entry button. And when you click on this, you'll see all those same form fields that we just talked about, where you're able to insert your answers. So you'll actually be completing it right on the platform, and you can go in at any time and start to draft your entry, save it. Even if you submit it to us officially, you're still welcome to pull it back in to you and make changes prior to that submission deadline. So there's no worry about that. I would encourage you to go in so you can play around with the fields. You know, many of these you can add images and things like that to them as well. ARS team, anything you'd like to add?
Not from me. That was perfect.
Okay, great. My next question is, who will be judging the proposals? We are trying to gauge how much specific terminology to include in the proposal. And Jeff, maybe I'll ask you to take a first draft answer in this question.
Yeah, I think you should definitely expect that the people will not be expert in your field. We're looking at having several different types of judges. We're starting from the premise that traditional academic proposal review is very conservative, and we're trying to open the gates a little bit wider and not have a traditional typical academic review. So we'll have some agricultural experts, but not necessarily from academia and not from any specific agricultural field. We'll also, we're planning to have experts with entrepreneurial backgrounds, entrepreneurial business startup backgrounds, so not necessarily any background in agriculture. I think it's important that the ideas are, that there's not much jargon being used, and that it will be accessible to anybody.
Great, thanks so much, Jeff. That was a really helpful answer. The next question I'm going to direct towards Brian. Is this a safe space to put in ideas that may eventually need intellectual property protection?
Yes, so I know we're going to have confidentiality agreements put into place to make sure that any sort of intellectual property is protected in that sense. You know, from the Office of Technology Transfer's point of view, once we have those non-disclosure agreements in place, that preserves our ability to file for patent protection. And I'll ask Rob Griesbach if he wants to add anything else.
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the things is it's really important if you have on your team people outside of ARS. And because if you're an ARS, that is all in-house, and we really don't have to worry about you know, the IP getting out and other people doing it. But if you're going to bring in other companies or team members, before you even discuss this, you probably do need a confidentiality agreement or non-disclosure agreement in place before you start talking with your idea to a university partner or another commercial partner. But, you know, to talk to another ARA scientist, you don't really need a confidentiality agreement or a non-disclosure agreement in place because we're from the same organization.
Yeah, so with that being said, we would encourage our ARS scientists to talk with our tech transfer coordinators to make sure we have the appropriate non-disclosure agreement in place before you approach the collaborator.
Great, thank you.
I wanted
Joe,
to just
go ahead,
I wanted
Jeff.
to add something. Just we had really excellent support from OTT in the last round, and at each stage when we identified the semifinalists and the winners, we were very careful in how we referred to the projects, how much information was disclosed. We ran everything through OTT, so I think this should give the applicants a level of comfort knowing that OTT is helping and keeping an eye on the whole process.
Yeah, and Joe could comment on this. I mean, his project has pretty good detail, but when we started talking about it, it was all cleared and sort of there's no detail left when we start announcing the winners and things like that. So I think, Joe as an entrepreneur, I think understands that we, had to sort of de-detail it before we told anybody about him as a winner.
Yes. So to just to clarify, I mean, you might seem a little silly asking for an NDA. I never do. I always dot I's and cross T's. You just never know. The collaborator to which they're speaking, both of them were my PhD advisors. And before we discussed any details related to the projects, I worked with our tech transfer coordinator to get the NDA pushed through. So better safe than sorry. And I feel it's comfortable that everybody, they made us aware that everybody who attends the event should be assigned, believe signing the NDA. So all the attendees, everybody that's going to hear your pitch, shouldn't be a potential leak source.
Great, thank you so much. There's a follow-up question that we actually received in advance of the webinar on intellectual property. So will we maintain our IP over the ideas once we submit? If we win a prize, do we maintain the IP rights? And I think we may have alluded to that, but just so we have a really clear answer, Brian, do folks retain their IP after they're awarded a prize?
So when you say retain IP, in other words, as an ARS scientist, there's an obligation to assign intellectual property to the US government. So in that sense, everyone is following the rules and procedures associated with their employer. So if you're an ARS scientist, clearly you're going to need to assign your rights to the US government. If you're an outside collaborator, you would have to assign it to your employer or the company in that sense. But everyone would, the ownership rights would still pertain to what their employer's rules are, and that's what we would follow. So no one individually would own their rights unless you came in as an outside person, as an individual. They then, in that particular case, that person would then own those rights.
Thanks, Brian.
Oh.
Yes,
So,
please go ahead.
We had so some help for you guys to think about is we have the what you think might be the difficult conversation out of the gate of has to clarify the requirements of being an ARS scientist and your what your obligations to the agency and what you need to sign away and how you need to protect why you're getting paid. And for us, we work closely with OTT because the patent is a legal instrument. All that is a legal document. So don't assume you know anything. Don't assume you don't know anything. But let them handle it, because as it turns out, our collaborators are going to be able to pursue a different set of of disclosures, whereas ARS is going to follow a different path. And I would just let OTT navigate that, but try to have the conversations up close so that your collaborators know what you're obligated to and what they're signing on for.
Great, thanks, Joe. Sujata, a question for you. Can I submit more than one entry? And can I participate on more than one team?
The answer to both of those is yes. Last year, we had several people participate in multiple teams and therefore submit multiple entries. And that is allowed, and that is, we can't tell you to only have one good idea. So certainly have good ideas and share them and put them forward, and they'll each be assessed individually. Ideally, we won't even really know, our judges will not know who is submitting those ideas. They'll be purely looking at the ideas themselves. So there's no reason to stop yourself from submitting an idea from that angle. And Jeff and Pam and Joe, if you'd also like to add anything.
Okay, awesome. In a similar vein, can someone submit as an individual if they don't have a team to submit with them? And Sujata, maybe I'll pass that one to you as well.
Yes, I think that that is a possibility. As we mentioned earlier, you have a year to do this, and your idea, hopefully, if you are more than equipped to take care of the needs of executing that project, then that's a team of one, right? But the key here is that based on what you want to accomplish, you should have the expertise necessary to accomplish that. And that's really where the need of maybe multiple people on a team will become absolutely necessary and will be critical to the success of your proposal. So thinking about your proposal, make sure that whatever you're proposing, you either have all the expertise necessary that in your proposal as to why you're all the team that's necessary. Whereas if you have certain expertise that's valuable to the proposal, but know that there's some missing aspect, it'll be important to show that you have a team member that can address that point. So I'll leave it there, but yes, it's not always necessary to have a large team or multiple members on the team, but do know that it's based on the science, it's based on what the proposal is asking to do.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sujata. We've had a follow-up question on intellectual property, so we'll circle back to that discussion. The question is, do we need to talk to tech transfer first, or can we just put the idea onto the web form and come back to the intellectual property issues later? Won't other teams and even their collaborators be able to see the idea once it's submitted? Jeff, maybe I'll have you start and then I'll pass it to Brian if there's anything additional.
Sure. Yeah, the only thing I wanted to clarify is it sounds like from the question that they think that other people will see their idea from the web, and the web submission form is just the way it gets into the HeroX system, and only reviewers that have signed non-disclosure agreements will see the proposal. Other competitors, other proposers wouldn't see the proposal. I think that was the part of the question. And then in terms of when to speak to OTT, I'll let Brian and Rob. Yeah.
And actually, Jeff, I also want to point out by submitting the proposal to HeroX, HeroX is also bound by confidentiality. So our scientists should not be worried about disclosing to them as well through their form online. Yeah. I guess if you have a question related to IP, feel free to just approach OTT and your tech transfer coordinator. And if your tech transfer coordinator doesn't know how to answer the question, they will definitely elevate it up to OTT's headquarters, where we can form even a strategy team where we have a patent advisor, a tech transfer coordinator, a licensing person, and we can actually sit down and kind of hash out the IP issues with you. So feel free to take advantage of that service.
Yeah, I would say one of the things when we reviewed some of the proposals last year, some people were hesitant to include enough detail because of those issues and didn't realize it's all under confidentiality. So you really want to make sure, and Joe can talk to this because he was pretty good at giving us all of the details so we could make a good decision. So, you don't want to restrict what you're telling us, because that's going to restrict your ability to actually get funded. Once you're funded, then we have an obligation to try to tell the world those kind of things. That's when OTT would then jump in and look at it, just like your 421 annual reports. We review those, the TTCs review those so that no, confidential or IP information is released in the annual reports. Once you're finished with your project and it was successful, then you want to really quickly talk to OTT about, okay, now I got these results. What do I do? Do I get a CRADA now? What's my strategy, my next strategy? So once your proposal has been funded and you've been successful and got an answer, then you want a major, hookup with OTT on developing a strategy to move forward for the next phase. But clearly make sure that your proposal has all of the good science in it. Otherwise, you're not going to have a very good chance of being funded.
Great, thank you so much for those answers. Joe, I'm going to pass this next question to you because you lived it last year. Can you describe the pitch event to us?
So the pitch event is great. I personally like it. Coming from an ARS scientist, you might have to readjust and reshuffle the way your brain thinks. But the pitch event is more closely tied to an elevator pitch as opposed to giving a scientific talk. So you need to clearly and concisely understand what the value your technology or your innovation offers, what value it offers to the end users, and how you're going to extract value and bring that to people who need that potential solution, as opposed to getting down into the weeds and going through every little scientific detail. It's high picture. And so some advice I've had along the way as an entrepreneur is a lot of times they want to bet on the jockey and not necessarily the horse. So try and sell a little bit about the team. Try and show that you have a well-rounded team and that you've thought about potential pitfalls and that you know how to pivot and move forward, and also just be open and honest and let them know you're not going to keep spinning your wheels at a dead end. You know when you have an idea and what's worth pursuing and when enough is enough. So that's really what you want to try and sell in the pitch, in my opinion. And that you have a good idea. You need to sell that too.
That's great. Thanks, Joe. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, I think one thing people need to realize is, as Joe said, the pitch is not your proposal. We have the proposal to read. So you don't need to pitch your proposal. You need to do what Joe just said. It's a sales job. Why your team is the best team to get funded. And, the details are in the proposal. So, so it's not like you're up in a poster session and you're giving us all the details. You're selling yourself in the pitch.
And we will go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, sorry, Kyle. I'd like to mention that, one of the ideas behind ARSX is to generate skills around science and innovation that you don't necessarily get from traditional projects. And this idea of being able to pitch your ideas and test them out is one of those skills. And Joe, I don't know if you can talk a little bit about, there was some training, chance to work with a innovation expert before the pitch and kind of hone things. Was that helpful? Is that because we're thinking, we plan to do the same sort of thing this year?
Absolutely. The pitch coach was great. They came from outside of ARS, but all of the coaches were excellent. I learned from them. I learned a lot from them. They will give you a chance to put together some drafts. You can pass it back and forth with them over email and tweak it. And then we had virtual sessions where we would practice the pitch or run through it once or twice, get feedback. They would say what's strong, what's weak, and they would give you their suggestions. It's your pitch, so you have to love it, but you can take their feedback and hone it in and really make it better. So ours got better every step of the way. So I would, if the opportunity is there, take it. Again, with OTT, I can't say enough. It's great. I mean, coming from industry, it's thousands of dollars an hour for IP counsel. So you don't have to pay for that. You just pick up the phone and call them. So use those resources. And then I guess one last thing is I think with ARS, I don't know, having gone through my RPS, I see from a lot of the scientists who helped me with my case is a lot of the emphasis seems to be on content generation. But I think ARSX and crafting your pitch is a great chance at directing people to your content or getting practice at that, because it doesn't matter how great your content is if nobody's seeing it. So developing some of these softer marketing skills to sell your ideas and sell your technology and learn how to pitch to a broader audience that's not necessarily your scientific peers is it's worth the effort.
Great. Thank you so much, Joe. I love hearing about it from you, having been one of the finalists and the winners in the pitch event. Following along the same theme, will the winners be determined based on the quality of their idea or the quality of their final pitch? And Jeff, maybe I'll have you answer that one first.
Pam, can you help with this?
So certainly the final pitch quality is important because the judges are listening to that. But it's going to be also, they're going to be during the whole process, the quality of the idea is going to be evaluated and pushed forward. So it's important to have excellent quality of the idea and not only be judged on the very last presentation during the pitch. So I think they kind of go hand in hand, but you know, some people present better than others. And so the judges are going to be looking at everything that they've been supplied with. So the write-up on the idea and all of the information that's put in there, as well as the pitch that's given at the end.
I think, you know, related to that, the two are different. So if you look at, you know, the proposal, you're looking at certain things, and it's sort of like Joe. And then the pitch is more or less complementary to what your idea is. Can the team do it? What's your good team? You know, so the two go sort of hand in hand. And when, you know, we're judging those, we're not only judging the idea, we're judging to make sure you got the right team to be able to, you know, implement that idea. So they're really complementary.
I want to just reveal that Rob Griesbach knows from what he speaks. He was one of the final judges last year. So your perspective is really especially relevant here. Rob, thanks.
And I'll only add, because I was really just a viewer last year. I wasn't at ARS yet, but I did sign an NDA to be a viewer. And the other important element is that there's a little bit of impromptu nature of those pitches where you have a question and answer. So truly, that is a skill I think that is important for all of us as scientists and as speakers, because whether it's that pitch day or another day, when you continue to pursue that idea, there is going to be questions, and being able to have that confidence, know that you have the material and have a team that you feel very confident in that's going to be able to execute is all important for the development of that team. And one particular team who's had extreme success, not only as individuals, but as a team, has gone on again and again to show that their efforts as a team has allowed them not only to do a great job at ARSX, but I guess be awarded other federal grants, right? That have allowed them to continue to work together really effectively. And I think that that's part of it, is that they really integrated well when they were doing their pitch training and throughout the whole process of the other collaborative activities that they work on at ARS. So I think that it really brings it all together when you do that pitch. The being on your feet to answer questions from our, extremely knowledgeable and valued judgment from our wisdom from our judges, but also to know your team so well that you feel that you can even bounce off in a virtual space or even in a real pitch session, how you would answer those questions. So all of it really hits, the rubber hits the road with those pitches.
Thanks, Sujata. That was awesome. Any other final comments on pitches before we move on to our next question? No. Okay. Joe, could you just share a little bit what was most valuable for you as participating in ARSX, and maybe what were some of the challenging parts of participating?
Most valuable. I think that the most valuable part of the experience is the experience going through it. Every step of the way that you have a chance to take an idea and polish it and refine it and get feedback from your coaches, team members, the panelists, the judges. You take that feedback and you can integrate it back into it, and you can see what's good, what's bad, what works, what doesn't work, and just keep getting better so that the next time should you not win, should you have a chance to polish it and try again. So I think that's the most valuable. The most challenging can be, it's different. So just changing the way you have to think and approach it. I get super excited. So for me, just to kind of hold it back a little bit and reel it in was the challenge for me, because I like to go fast. And when my mind might go really, really fast and then the words don't come out quickly. So try to practice so that you can get the rhythm and the emotion. And it's not just the details, get the rhythm, get the emotion, really get that pitch down. That's a challenge.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Joe. I think that's just so great to hear from that perspective from you. Okay, I'm going to direct this question to Brian. What can the funds be used for? And Brian, feel free to redirect if appropriate. But
yeah, I'm going to redirect it to Rob, if that's possible.
Yeah, basically we're using licensing revenue. So we're not going to be able to use the funds for a USDA person to go to a meeting, for tuition, for a food, for things like that. But it's basically how you can use your appropriated dollars, so to speak. But it's a little more limited. It's more or less, the best way to look at that is you can go on Axon and look up the Innovation Fund and see where you can actually use those particular funds. But you are able to take the funds into your CRIS and do a NACA and actually move it then to a collaborator as well. You can use the funds to set up workshops, virtual workshops and things like that. So the funds don't necessarily need to be entirely used for research. To use the funds to purchase equipment, you're going to have to get those sort of pre-cleared. And Joe can talk about that a little bit there too. But it's pretty broad in how you can use those funds. What I would suggest if you're going to do a project is check with OTT or your tech transfer coordinator and say, can I use the funds for this? And they can tell you right away, no, you can't use those funds. So, check before you submit.
So yes, we did do that. We put together a budget out of the gate. We had those tough conversations out of the beginning. And once the funds came in, we put together, we went to OTT, they recommended the agreement. As the scientists just focus on the scope of work and the budget, who's going to do what, and let them do what they do well. And everything will go smoothly.
Thanks, Joe. I love this next question. I'm curious to hear what you all have to say. As I'm working on writing up our initial proposal, I'm curious to hear from the panel any general advice they have for things to keep in mind to create a successful ARSX proposal. And Pam, why don't we start with you if you don't mind? What are your thoughts on creating a successful ARSX proposal?
So one, it has to address the topic. So you have to make sure that you're going towards the what was asked for. But two, it's also to really step out a bit and do something that you think is going to really get you over that particular hump of being successful in working in that area and taking risk. We want to make sure that that you're thinking in a big way because even if it's not successful, we're going to learn something from it and we're going to move ahead and it's going to propel us further in that area of science. So don't be shy and afraid about putting something in there that's fairly risky, but if it pans out, will have a tremendous effect on what we're going for. And there's a lot of other things, but that would be the first thing that I'd be looking for.
That's great. Thank you, Pam.
I think, Joe, your project is an interesting one in that, it's very risky and it's a very unusual, will this actually work? And it's like, if you put it for a NIFA grant, they'd say, it's too risky. We're not going to fund this thing. But if it's successful, and who knows, it's going to change radically how we test for a citrus greening. So, I think, what we are looking for is not your comfortable, we give you the money, you get the publication, and you move science a little bit. We're looking for something that's risky, that if it works, is not going to move science a little bit. It's going to be in a whole new direction and maybe open up a whole new field of science. So, you have to step out of your comfort zone, and it's not like a NIFA proposal where, basically you need the research done before you can get it funded because it's got to be 100% successful. We're looking for something like Joe's project. I'm not sure this is going to work, but man, if it does, it's going to be pretty revolutionary. Joe, you want to sort of talk a little bit about that?
I think that sums it up great. I mean, that's what's great about ARSX is you can take that idea that even you aren't convinced that you have to, that it's going to work. I mean, I'm skeptical. I'm most engineers. If somebody pitched this to me, I'd definitely would pause. But and again, it kind of comes back to the challenge is, how do you, sometimes when you write these longer grants and you have the longer winded, it's almost easier to write those longer pitches. You have a 5-minute pitch. What's important? And how do I convey what's important? And then, again, what valuable feedback that I got is everybody's got a different opinion. And as you go through the process and you kind of bounce ideas off different people, you eventually will distill down what's important. You can't Steve Jobs it and say, I have it. And I mean, that's probably not going to work. You need to be flexible, listen, and take the feedback and sculpt it. And I think that, that in itself is valuable. That'll help your next grant proposal for sure.
Great answers.
Great. Anyone else from ARS want to chime in about success or tips for creating a successful proposal? Those were all great suggestions.
think another thing that's important here too is take advantage of, you know, one thing I can tell people that if you want to do any agricultural research, there's somebody in ARS that can do anything you want to do, basically. And so, you know, just make sure you've got, you know, the best team available, you know, and you know, use your NPLs and things like that, and make sure you've got a really good team, because, you know, because of ARSX, you got the opportunity to create sort of your own research team. And to me, that's really the cool part. You get to take people from other national programs and put together a research team to get your idea done. So don't lose track of making sure you get the team together and focus just on getting the research done. Make sure you got a really good team to get it done.
Yeah, Rob, you reminded me when we were designing ARSX, we were looking to solve problems that are intrinsically motivating, socially worthy, and impossible to do with what we know now. And so, yeah, it's really about breakthrough and putting together, you know, the dream team, your dream team.
I really love this kind of space where failure is embraced. And that's one of the things that I love about supporting ARSX. It's so fun to be somewhere where high risk and fail fast is part of the goal. Okay, so we just have 5 minutes left. If you have any burning questions, please do put them in the Q&A box. But for now, I think we have made it to the end of the questions that we had for our webinar today. Pam, before we close off, do you have any final thoughts or words of encouragement to share with these folks who are considering participating?
Yeah, again, I'd just like to say, you know, think really big, not just incrementally, but think about something that's out there on the horizon of where you can get to. And people keep saying fail. And the way I look at this is, you may not achieve exactly what you set out to achieve, but you are going to achieve something, and we're going to learn something from it, and it is going to move the field ahead, even if it's not precisely the way you thought you were going to go. In fact, some of the biggest achievements have come from very different angles that we never would have predicted. So don't be afraid to put something out there that's you know, a little bit on the dreaming side. And then, as Rob said, make sure that you tap into those other people who can do the things if you can't get them particularly done, but may not have been thinking of it in the same way that you have. And if you put your idea together with their skills, you may be able to achieve quite a bit.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Pam. Jeff, anything you'd like to add as final thoughts?
Yeah, no, just really want to encourage people to take the chance to you know, to think big, really go for that breakthrough idea. We want you to take the chance to, you know, attack the problems that you think about when on your way to bed, and, you know, on your way to sleep, and then when you wake up. This is a chance to really go after it, and I can't wait to see the ideas.
Fantastic. Well, what a way to close out for today. Thank you all the panelists for joining us. I really appreciate your time and hearing the stories of last year and your insights into this year. For the folks that were listening in today, thank you. Please do go to that herox.com/ARSX2021 and make sure you subscribe there so that we can keep you updated with future information on the challenge. And just a reminder that the deadline is on June 29th. So that is coming up very quickly. With that, thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday, and we look forward to seeing your submissions.